Have you ever wondered who the very first Americans were? When did they arrive? Where did they come from? Scientists have been asking these questions for hundreds of years, but now something incredible has been found in Oregon, something that changes everything we thought we knew. A discovery so old, so shocking, that it pushes back human history in America by thousands of years. What they found will blow your mind. Deep in the high desert of Oregon, there's a place called Rimrock Draw. It's a rocky shelter carved into the side of a cliff. But this isn't just any cave. This place holds secrets that are almost 20,000 years old. The evidence found here makes it the oldest place where humans lived in North America, older than any other site we've ever discovered. And what scientists found inside changed history forever. The story starts in 2009. An archaeologist named Scott Thomas was driving supplies to another dig site. He wasn't even looking for anything special. But then he saw something strange, a row of rocks sticking up through the sagebrush underneath tall grass. Really tall grass. That's when he knew something was hidden there. You see, tall grass means deep dirt, and deep dirt means old stuff buried underneath. Scott found some stone spearheads on the surface. They were about 8,000 years old. Cool, right? But he had no idea what was waiting deeper down. In 2011, a team from the University of Oregon started digging. A scientist named Dr. Patrick O'Grady led the team. They set up their tools, marked their grids, and started digging carefully, inch by inch. The shelter wasn't huge, just about 10 feet deep and 65 feet long. But it had something special. A stream once ran right next to it. Water and shelter, the perfect camp for ancient people. But how old were these people? Nobody knew yet. For a long time, everyone believed the same story. The first Americans were called the Clovis people. They came here about 13,000 years ago. Scientists thought they walked from Asia to America across a land bridge called Beringia. Here's how they thought it worked. Huge sheets of ice covered most of North America. But between these ice sheets was a corridor, a pathway. The Clovis people supposedly walked through this ice-free corridor and spread across America. That was the story everyone believed. But there was one big problem. New studies showed something shocking. That ice corridor didn't open until 12,000 years ago, and even when it opened, nothing lived there. No plants, no animals, nothing to eat. It was a frozen wasteland. So how could the Clovis people have used it? They couldn't have. The whole theory was wrong. Then other sites started popping up. Scientists found Meadowcroft Rock Shelter in Pennsylvania with tools and fire pits that were 16,000 years old. Wait, what? That's 3,000 years before Clovis. Then came Cooper's Ferry in Idaho, also 16,000 years old. These discoveries proved something important. People were here before the ice corridor opened. So how did they get here? Scientists came up with a new idea. They traveled by boat along the Pacific coast. This is called the kelp highway theory. The coast was full of food. Seals, fish, shellfish, kelp forests. Ancient people could paddle their boats down the coast, eating as they went. It made perfect sense. But Rimrock Draw was about to shock everyone even more. In 2012, the team was digging deep, really deep, about 8 feet down into the ground. And then they found it, pieces of a tooth. And not just any tooth, a camel tooth. Now, you might be thinking, camels in Oregon? That's crazy. But here's the thing, camels actually came from North America originally. Millions of years ago, they evolved here, then spread to Asia and Africa. But in America, they went extinct about 13,000 years ago. These weren't small camels either, they were massive. Scientists call them Camelops hesternus. Picture this, 7 feet tall at the shoulder, nearly 2,000 pounds. That's bigger than any camel alive today. They could run 40 miles per hour. These were giants. And the ancient people of Rimrock Draw hunted them. But how do we know that? The camel bones had cut marks on them, tool marks. Human beings butchered this camel. This wasn't an animal that died naturally and rolled into a cave. This was dinner. Someone killed it, someone cut it up, someone ate it. But wait, it gets even crazier. The camel tooth was found under a layer of ash, volcanic ash, and this is where the story gets wild. In archaeology, volcanic ash is like a timestamp from nature. Every volcano has a unique chemical signature, like a fingerprint. Scientists can test the ash and figure out exactly which volcano it came from and when it erupted. This ash came from Mount St. Helens, not the famous 1980 eruption. This was much, much older. It happened 1,600 years ago. The ash buried everything, sealing the camel tooth like a time capsule. Here's what that means. If the ash is 1,600 years old, then anything underneath it must be even older. Scientists used radiocarbon dating to test the enamel of the camel tooth. The results came back, and everyone was stunned. The tooth was 18,250 years old. Let me say that again. 18,250 years old. That's more than 5,000 years older than the Clovis people. This changed everything. But the camel tooth wasn't the only thing they found. The team also discovered stone tools, beautiful tools made from orange agate. And these tools are special for three big reasons. First, agate is an amazing material. It breaks like glass, which means you can make edges sharper than a razor blade. Ancient people loved using it. Second, this particular orange agate doesn't exist anywhere near Rimrock Draw. The closest sources are over 100 miles away. That means these ancient people traveled huge distances to get the right stone, or they traded with other groups. Either way, these people were smart and organized. The tools themselves were scrapers. Think of them like ancient Swiss army knives with multiple cutting edges on one tool. And here's where it gets insane. Scientists tested one of these scrapers for residue. They were looking for ancient proteins, and they found blood, not just any blood, but bison blood from an extinct species of bison. You might be wondering, how does blood survive for 18,000 years? Great question. The blood proteins get trapped in tiny cracks in the stone, protected from bacteria and sunlight, almost like a fossil. This is the smoking gun. It proves these tools were used to butcher large animals. The ancient bison were even bigger than modern buffalo, up to 7.5 feet tall and 3,500 pounds with horns 3 feet across. Then they found another scraper buried even deeper in the ash, which means it's even older than the camel tooth. The team also found 68 stone spearheads, different styles, different time periods. Some were 7,000 years old, some 13,000 years old, but the deepest ones were the oldest. And there's more. They found tiny blade fragments, cores where stone was chipped away, even waste flakes from making tools. This wasn't just a quick stop. People lived here for a long time. They made tools here, they fixed broken weapons here. This was home. But perhaps the most incredible discovery, human hair. Not one or two strands, at least 29 samples from at least 3 different people. The hair was preserved in clay. The ends were natural, not cut. These people had never seen metal scissors. Just imagine holding a piece of hair from someone who lived 18,000 years ago. Mind-blowing. Let's talk about the world these people lived in. It was full of monsters, not just camels and bison. The Oregon desert was packed with megafauna, huge animals that are now extinct. There were Columbian mammoths, 13 feet tall and 10 tons. Imagine an elephant, but bigger. There were mastodons browsing in wetland forests, giant ground sloths, dire wolves, and the most terrifying predator of all, the short-faced bear. This thing stood 11 feet tall on its hind legs. It could run faster than a horse. If you saw one, you were probably dead. There were also saber-toothed cats, multiple species of ancient horses, and herds of those giant bison. For the people at Rimrock Draw, these animals were everything. Food, clothing, tools, but also danger. Hunting a 2,000-pound camel with stone-tipped spears took serious courage and skill. Now picture the environment. This was the last glacial maximum, the peak of the Ice Age. Temperatures were 10 degrees Fahrenheit colder than today. The oceans were 400 feet lower. Huge ice sheets covered Canada and parts of the northern United States. But Oregon wasn't covered in ice. Instead, it was cold and wet. The mountains had glaciers. Meltwater created enormous lakes across the desert. Lake Fort Rock was 751 square miles. Lake Abbott was even bigger. The landscape looked totally different. Forests grew at lower elevations, pine trees, spruce, juniper. Animals that today live high in the mountains, back then they lived in the valleys. And right next to Rimrock Draw, a permanent stream, fresh water flowing year-round. For ancient people, this was paradise, shelter water and herds of huge animals to hunt. The stream flowed for thousands of years. Eventually it turned into a marsh. Then, about 7,600 years ago, something catastrophic happened. Mount Mazama exploded. Today, we call it Crater Lake. The eruption was massive. Ash covered everything for hundreds of miles. Shortly after, Rimrock Draw was abandoned. The people left and never came back. Here's why this changes everything. Here's the key to proving Rimrock Draw is the oldest. Stratigraphy. That's the science of rock layers. It's based on a simple rule. In undisturbed ground, the oldest stuff is at the bottom, like a layer cake. The volcanic ash is 15,600 years old. We know that for certain. The camel tooth was found under the ash, so it must be older than 15,600 years. Testing proved it was 18,250 years old. But the tools were found even deeper, below the camel tooth, below everything. That means the tools are even older than 18,250 years. So Rimrock Draw isn't just old. It's the oldest confirmed human site in North America. It beats the Clovis culture by more than 5,000 years. Let that sink in, 5,000 years older. Thanks for watching. If you found this story amazing, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible discoveries from the past.